in their arsenal. Especially, I just discovered this great new brush, and I don't use it in this particular illustration, but the blob brush, oh man, it is fantastic. It's like working with a real ink paintbrush. When you paint with it, the overlapping strokes will merge together, and you can create these really great organic shapes. You can get thicks and thins, and it's really wonderful. It's worth learning Illustrator just to fool around with the blobby brush. So I've got my masthead pretty much in place, and I decided, just needs a little bit of refinement before taking it back into Photoshop. And I think I actually do a little bit of back and forth because once looking at something black on white, sometimes it's a little more readable than it is once it's in context. So I get it set up, and I love the look here. Something about it reminds me of something from my childhood. I don't know what it is. Once I get it set up, then I decided that I was going to drop it back into Photoshop and just see what it looked like. And immediately I knew I'd made the right decision. It just felt so much better than what I had originally hand drawn. Of course, with the warp tool, you can make it do whatever you want. Now, again, one of the things I noticed once I dropped it in there is the I didn't really read, and neither did the S. It looked more like Bjork&Berries. So I decided to go back and adjust that a little bit so that those things read more clearly. Checking my reference, my Google reference, to kind of get an idea if I'm going the right direction. I had gone back and forth several times on whether to fill the masthead with some kind of color or pattern or texture or something, and in the end, it just looked better with white and a stroke. Of course, you got to have some nice vector graphics in the background. It really helps it read as an actual cereal box, as opposed to just the soft amorphous background that I had thrown in there originally. And once you go down the path of actually adding these things, then I decided that I needed to start adding all kinds of little tricks and doodads that they'll use in packaging to make that stuff work. Especially on cereal boxes, glows are real big, drop shadows. And it seemed like a natural progression for this. And as it developed, it seemed very important that it become an actual, or could be used as an actual cereal box cover. There's always a danger that you'll go too far and add too much, though. But I think in the end, I ended up stopping at a pretty good place. And, one of the nice things about working and painting in Photoshop, because I'm a really traditional guy, I like to do things on paper with paint, but the level of quality you can get digitally there's really no comparison, and there's no going back. It's nice to have a tool. It's nice for any artist to have a tool at their disposal that allows them to go in and quickly add color and see what things are going to look like, and then to be able to undo those things and then to redo them easily and be able to redo them quickly. At this point, I was having a little visual problem with the box. I had all this negative space down at the bottom that wasn't really working. So after going through and cleaning up my layer set, getting rid of extraneous layers, I'm the world's worst at that. But if you're organized, it's a good idea to get rid of stuff you're not using or not going to use. Maybe even create a folder within your layer set in Photoshop and put unused layers in there if you want to keep them. Just move it to the bottom. That way they're out of the way, and you don't have to get completely rid of them. So at this point, my lovely wife pointed out that perhaps my Bjork heads were a little boring and didn't read necessarily as Bjork. It's not the most powerful caricature that you ever see in the world, but there are some very distinctive qualities and things that Bjork's done over the years. One of the most memorable was this face paint from her Volta tour, and anyone remotely familiar with her body of work will recognize that face paint. Probably that and the swan dress are her two most popular and famous looks. So that seemed like a shoe-in, to help that read as, oh, hey, that's actually a Bjork face. Um, and I just dropped the photo right in there to pull colors from and as reference to know how to paint that stuff. And then just freehanding. There's really not much planning involved in that. The other was inspired by the very ghostly or China doll look that she had for one of the albums. I don't remember which one, but it gave the image a little visual variety, so it wasn't too bland or too boring. So I'm just about there with my Bjork&Berry box cover, but as I mentioned a minute ago, I realized that the negative space on the front was not really working for me. And I'd love that line that I had on there, the audiolicious. So in keeping with the recreated masthead, I decided that I would need to recreate that type as well. And I totally cheated with that, though, because I wasn't going to redraw it, so I just typeset it. I thought this was kind of clever, too, the Now with Sugar Cubes. If you're a Bjork fan, then you'll know that she used to sing with a band. They were called the Sugar Cubes way, way back. Anyway, so it's just a little gag to throw down there and help fill up all that empty space underneath the bowl. Again, set that in Illustrator and then dropped it into Photoshop as a raster object. Now, one of my pet peeves is I wish I could drop raster or vector objects into Photoshop and be able to warp them, but as of yet, you cannot do that. So once it'd be nice to keep the vector because it's very crisp and very clean and allows editability down the road. But in this case, I dropped it in just as a raster object so that I could use that warp tool, which is wonderful. I think they introduced the warp tool in Photoshop back in CS, the original CS release, and it immediately totally changed the way that I work whenever I'm in Photoshop. And I don't think you see it here, but another feature they added in CS4 was the ability to rotate your canvas to paint. Wow, that's a feature that really, really makes Photoshop a lot more powerful. Because as an artist, you're no longer required to get into those weird positions trying to paint different paint strokes. You can just rotate your canvas, and just like with a drawing, you rotate your paper, and then you're making natural arcs that follow, the length of your arm with the pencil at the end of it. Of course, anybody working seriously in Photoshop, and I know there are people out there who say they could do it all with a mouse, but a Wacom tablet and a stylus make a huge difference. And once you've used a Wacom and a stylus, you'll never, ever, ever go back to doing everything with a mouse ever again. So it is a little bit of an investment if you're a new artist, but it is money well spent. And in fact, there are some knockoff tablets out there that I've never used, but I'm using the same Wacom tablet that I bought 6 or 7 years ago. So there's new tablets out with new features and new functions, and they're great. But my point is that it continues to be an investment that or a tool that I can use over time. It's not like a computer that oh wow, this just doesn't work anymore. So let's see. Back to our painting here. I'm working out the type for the audiolicious tagline there underneath. Trying to make it fit into the overall design without being lost, but also without standing out too much and overwhelming the really important parts, which in this particular piece would be the bowl full of Bjork heads and the masthead Bjork&Berries. At this point, it's time to break up that sea of blueberries with some highlights to get them shiny and wet looking. Details like this really sell an image. It doesn't take a lot of time to do, you don't really see it unless it's not there, and then you just feel like something's missing. You're not sure what it is. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this. I had a ball producing this particular piece. It's definitely one of my favorite ones I've done lately. I hope it's inspiring or encouraging in some way, or maybe at least a little bit educational. And I'll let you know, doing these pieces is really exciting and really enjoyable for me. So I hope some of that translates and inspires you to get out and do a little more work and try things yourself. Experiment, take risks, be ready to fail, but just keep on working. Please come by often. I'm always adding new content, and I'd love to know what you think. Thanks a lot. I hope you enjoyed it.